And we are live. Once again, it's on with the Black Comic Lords, Wakanda Whiskey, BLERDDOM, and Bourbon, with your host, Paul, my partner, Marc. Say what's up, Marc. It's been a minute.
What's going on? Yeah, it's a couple of weeks. No
What's
whiskey
good,
tonight,
what's
so
really
just
good?
drinking water. Just drinking water. I hadn't eaten recently, so I'm just drinking water. Didn't want to get too drunk, so yeah.
Water. I got some water myself. To go hand in hand with my whiskey.
Sounds good. So before we came on, we were talking what we should start with, and of course, you know what I think.
Doctor Strange. And I've got the Boondocks.
Doctor Strange. So you saw it. I've seen it twice at this point. Scale of 1 to 10.
I give it a 9.5.
And I gave it a 10. For me, there was nothing else that they could have done to make that movie better.
There are lots of things they could have done to make it better, but I'll let you go.
For me, there was nothing that they could have done to make that show better. It hit on all cylinders. I like how it tied into the overall MCU. Elizabeth Olsen is a very good actress. I got to give her props. She's an extremely good actress. I like the introduction of the new character. I like the after credit scene, which I will not discuss for those who may not have seen it as of yet.
Oh, we spoiling the hell out that movie tonight, dude. You mean it's been a week.
It's been a week, but certain things don't necessarily need to be spoiled. Because I had no idea about the first after credit scene. If you go see the movie, if you haven't seen it, the second after credit scene is a complete waste. You do not need to watch the second after credit scene. The first one, absolutely. And I like how that one ties into the comic book mythology of Doctor Strange. But overall, I liked it. I had no complaints about it whatsoever. I like the casting, some of the surprise castings. I had no complaints. I enjoyed it. I mean, okay. You told me already what your issue was because you wanted to see certain folks.
I will talk about what my issue
was. I get it. I was about to ask you, but I now remembered what it was that you said. You said you wanted to see certain people. Go ahead.
Well, I had to take off for a couple of things. This film should have had some more characters that I was interested in. I'll be flat out. This was the perfect film to introduce Brother Voodoo, Dr. Voodoo, and it didn't, and I'm disappointed in that. Be that as it may, so they get a 0.1 deduction for that. I thoroughly enjoyed the film. I give the analogy of this. Do you remember seeing Endgame?
Yeah.
Okay. Endgame was often described as a 10-year culmination of Marvel Cinematic Universe fandom in one event. It was the big payoff for those loyal, faithful MCU fans of the franchise. That was their big reward. Doctor Strange 2 is not that.
No.
Doctor Strange 2 is the big payoff for comic book fans because Doctor Strange 2 had so many comic book references that had no precursors within the MCU that only comic book fans got. So what's interesting for me is when I see people talk about their feelings about the film, you have basically two camps. You don't have a lot of people that are in the middle like, yeah, it was all right. You have people that are like, I really loved the movie, or I wasn't really feeling it. It's kind of both, one or the other. I wasn't really feeling it. In my estimation, those tend to be more of the MCU casual fans, like those people that are just into the MCU movies that give a damn about the comic books. For the comic book fans, it was like, oh my God, they mentioned this. Oh my God, they put this in there. Oh my God, and the MCU fans are scratching their heads like, why is the dude 2 rows down getting all excited about seeing that? Because they're not getting the references. This movie was loaded with Easter egg references that you would get if you were a comic book reader. Even the
There,
introduction of America Chavez and
yeah.
where she's from, that was loaded with comic book references.
I don't, you're familiar with her. I'm not familiar with that character like at all. Like her, Miss Marvel, those just aren't characters that I'm interested in as teen girls. I just there's really nothing about them specifically that I'm really interested in. Um, but the people that I follow on Twitter, I follow a lot of comic book accounts, and I've seen actual comic book fans state that they weren't as enamored with the movie as I am, as I was, as we are. I think those folks tend to be more. I don't know. I'm not gonna say critical, but and I'm not gonna say fake. But if you go into a film to enjoy it and to be entertained, I don't see how you couldn't be with that. Going back to what you were saying about how it had this, this, and this, or whatever, and the plot made sense. The action was there. It wasn't boring. I don't
Yeah.
understand how you could just think it was meh, unless you're just one of those people who like to be contrary. People who want to be contrary just for the sake of being contrary. For me, there was nothing wrong with that film. And as you know, I watch a lot of movies, a lot of TV, and there was literally nothing for me that they could have done to make it better, except maybe a certain mid scene during the actual movie that could have been longer with certain characters. BCL Star Dancer says I enjoyed the film as well because it was a good movie. I mean, I don't see how somebody can sit up here and say, been watching 14 years of MCU movies and say, yeah, this one was just I. No, it was one of the better ones, top 10 at this point.
Oh,
To
certainly,
me.
certainly.
So, you know,
Now, what's
um,
interesting is where do they go from here? Here's the
well,
thing. I have long said for the last 2 years since this movie was announced that this was going to be one of Marvel's most important films they've ever done because this solidifies the concept of the multiverse. We've had introductions and inklings of it already with the Loki series, even with Endgame to an extent, where they have the explanation with the Ancient One and Hulk.
and
But
Spider Man,
certainly,
of course.
and then of course, the most recently with the Spider-Man film. Marvel has slowly, God bless Kevin Feige. He knows what he's doing. He's slowly but surely expanding the concept and letting people get used to and understand the concept of what the multiverse is. Because casual movie-going fans aren't going to understand how
You know what?
complex it can be. Hold on, let me finish.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the thing. What is clearly going to happen, the key word that you hear in this film that is important is the word incursions. Incursions. Because the incursion storyline that was done by Jonathan Hickman in the New Avengers storyline, um, the what was it, One Final Day, something like that, Countdown or whatever, that whole storyline that led to Secret Wars reshaped the entire Marvel universe. Why is it important? If you have not read Infinity, you have not read that New Avengers run with Jonathan Hickman, if you have not read Secret Wars, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But understand that Marvel has declared already that there's going to be a Secret Wars movie. They've already sort of introduced one of the major characters of everyone knows at this point the Illuminati was in this film. So that's not a spoiler. And the Illuminati is a huge part of dealing with the incursions. That's the whole point of what they're doing. And that concept's now been introduced.
The New Avengers storyline that Paul is talking about is New Avengers Volume 3 that dropped in 2013. It was 33 issues. And it leads into the sequel. Hold on. Gordon says, interestingly, today I was asked by someone if I thought Doctor Strange 2 was better than 1. I told them that they were two different films and two different purposes. I enjoyed them both. To piggyback off what Gordon just said, personally, yes, 2 was better than 1, even though 1 was great as well. But going back to the comic books, the new, as I said, Volume 3 is 33 issues, and I know a lot of people probably aren't going to go out and hunt down 33 issues of books. I'm quite sure that the trade paperbacks are out there now. A second ago, Paul said something that casual fans or people may not know about multiple universes or things of that nature. Now, I would somewhat disagree in that this is a concept that has been prevalent in sci-fi things for generations. And one of the things that I look at is, for example, Star Trek. Star Trek. Star Trek. In Star Trek, I want to say it was in the original series, you had the concept of the USS Enterprise going to a different alternate universe where they ran into alternate versions of themselves who were quote unquote evil. Because I remember Spock, he had like a whole Fu Manchu, mustache and goatee. I mean, so this concept has been out there for a long time. It is, thankfully it's not anything new. So I think people may somewhat understand. In DC, they don't call it the multiverse. What do they call it in DC?
Elseworlds or
no.
The Crises?
Yeah, because the Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline tried to pare down all of the other universes that are out there and all the other Earths that were out there.
Let me show people something. I just
don't remember what it was called right now. So.
All right. So what you see here on the screen is a storyline I'm talking about. This is New Avengers Volume 3. Here's the first issue. If you can see in the background is it's the Illuminati. You've got Reed Richards, Iron Man, Black Bolt, Namor, Black Panther. Black Panther's in the front for a couple reasons. One, for all intents and purposes, this was really a Black Panther book, Black Panther team book. Black Panther was sort of the leader of the Illuminati at this point, and he had made their base of operations at the necropolis in Wakanda so they could meet in secret as they planned. Now, let me explain to you what the incursions are, because the Doctor Strange movie mentioned it. When the multiverse becomes unstable, which there's enough MCU history at this point for definitely a basis for the multiverse to be unstable. What with Spider-Man? I beg your pardon?
Especially after Loki and Spider-Man.
Yeah, especially after Loki and Spider-Man. When the multiverse becomes unstable, these universes will crash into each other. And when they crash into each other, both universes that crash are destroyed. So, and it's like a domino effect. So the more worlds that crash, the more worlds get destroyed. And that's what the incursions are. And the Illuminati of the Earth 616 figured this out. They realized that other universes are destroying, and it's only a matter of time before the 616 Earth is destroyed. How do you prevent your planet from being destroyed when everything else in the chain is being destroyed? You have to destroy enough other universes surrounding you so that you're the last ball on the pool table, right? And so the Illuminati comes up with the schemes to try and destroy these worlds. They actually go out and try to destroy worlds to save the Earth, destroy other universes. This storyline culminates in another storyline called Infinity, which I'll show you here. This is Infinity with Thanos. This is also part of that same incursion storyline.
6-issue limited series.
Yeah. And all of this culminates in what is called Secret Wars, because eventually all of this comes down to the final couple of universes. One universe is the 616 universe that we have today, that you all know. The other universe is the 1610 universe, which Mark and I will tell you is one of our favorite universes. That's the ultimate Marvel comic universe. That is the universe from which Miles Morales came from.
And that's the one
Um,
that gave us Black Nick Fury, aka Samuel L. Jackson.
right. As well, well, yes. In terms of it being in the comics, yes. The Black Nick Fury we have in the 616 is not from the Ultimate Universe. He's his own creation. Um, Here it is. This is Secret Wars. You see everyone. There's Miles Morales. You've got Iron Man. You've got Black Bolt. You got the Illuminati. Huge storyline. Huge storyline. And spoiler alert, I have 3 of these last couple issues. Why? Because I'll give you guys a pro tip. Secret Wars number 9. 2 important things happen in this. Well, at least 2 important things happen in the storyline, other than the culmination and ending of the storyline. At the end of the storyline, Black Panther and Reed Richards, in short, save the universe. And they form one final universe out of all of this mess. Black Panther actually has the Infinity Gauntlet to help him do that. At the end of it all, T'Challa goes back to Wakanda, and he sends out people, Wakandan astronauts, young people, says, "You are the future of Wakanda. My mother was a great scientist, my real mother, before she died, was a great scientist who wanted to explore the galaxy. To honor her, she wanted to also look at where the origins of vibranium came from, because we know vibranium came to Africa from a meteor. So I want you guys to go out in space and find where vibranium came from." So the astronauts, he sends them out into space. What is the significance of this very small scene? Those astronauts eventually went through a wormhole in time and crashed on a planet, and their descendants formed the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. So the intergalactic empire of Wakanda that done by Ta-Nehisi Coates began in this issue. Those are the astronauts that formulated an empire. But moreover, what also happened? This is the issue in which Miles Morales survived the incursion of the 1610 universe and joined the 616 universe. So when Miles eventually comes into the MCU, this is the issue that happens. Very important.
And just for people to understand, Paul was talking about the New Avengers and the Illuminati, which was Hickman in 2013. The original Illuminati in Marvel started way back in 2006 during the Civil War storyline. It contained Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, Black Bolt, Iron Man, and Professor X, and Namor were the 6 original members of the Illuminati. And their membership comes and goes, kind of. You know, if somebody has a problem, they'll just go and leave. For those who don't know, the Illuminati were basically the leaders of the different Marvel superhero groups who would come together and work kind of like an NSA. The NSA here in America is where you have all the different intelligence agencies culminating in one little group, so we can have a clear understanding of the information that's out there. Same thing with the Illuminati. The Illuminati are, you know, the leader of the Fantastic Four, a member of the Avengers, the X-Men, the Inhumans, etc., etc. Namor being a monarch in his own right of Atlantis. They came together to handle the problems that they didn't necessarily want to involve their groups in, and perhaps do some wet work, some dirty stuff that the other individuals may not want to be a part of, to solve the issues that nobody else can solve. So that was the whole basis of the Illuminati. There was a one shot during Civil War, which was in 2006. Then they had a 6-issue. That's it. Then they had a 5-issue limited series in like 2007 or so. So the Illuminati didn't just start with that New Avengers storyline. They predated it by like 7 years. So, yeah.
This is the volume 2 done by Michael Bendis.
Yeah. Let me see. I'll make sure that I have doing my own investigation. Make sure I have all of them.
And there
Yep,
was
there's only
also
five. Yep, there's only five, so I have all of them.
this version as well with the criminals.
Yes, yes, yes. They showed up because they were led by the Red Hood or the Hood, I think it
Yeah,
was.
the
He was a
Hood.
character I was completely and totally unfamiliar with until he made his appearance in those books.
Parker
And
Robbins.
yeah, I had no idea who that dude was until he started popping up in some of the Avengers books. That's the only way. That's the way I became familiar with him. And then there was a version that had some of the big wigs. I want to say Doctor Doom was a member, Kingpin perhaps, Loki was a member. I just don't remember what books those were in, but they created their own Illuminati as well. I think it may have been after the Secret Invasion storyline when, oh yeah, Norman Osborn was a member. So I want to say he was trying to lead things when Tony Stark was on the outs after he killed the Squirrel Queen after their Secret Invasion. Yeah, Gordon talks about how they cover the concept of multiple universes in practically every Star Trek series. In the what's the one mirror universe? Yes, absolutely right. Same concept. It's the exact same concept. Um, to Avengers Legacy issue one. I'm not familiar with that one. What Secret Wars? Some
That's from 2015.
okay, yeah. There was the original Marvel superhero Secret Wars came out in what 1984,
That is
and
my favorite crossover of all time.
right, that is probably by far the best crossover event in comic books history.
Yeah,
Right?
but I don't think that's the superheroes secret wars that they're going to do in the MCU.
No. I agree with you, but I'm just going down the history. That one was really, really good. That introduced this character known as the Beyonder, whose origin has been retconned. But after they had Secret Wars number one, which is 12 issues, they had Secret Wars 2, which was rather ass. And that's when the Beyonder came from his universe to Earth, and he was dealing with Earth heroes and things of that nature, and that storyline was ass. Then there was a third one, which was actually kind of cool, where some superheroes went Secret Wars 3, which is where some superheroes went on a mission and they didn't know they went on this mission because their minds were wiped. And that was about a 5 or 6 issue limited series. And that one was actually kind of good. But I say all that to say there are a lot of Secret Wars out there. I get tired of them using the same concept consistently. For example, I don't need to see another storyline with the Phoenix in it ever again. You know, when the Phoenix was first introduced back in the 80s by Chris Claremont, beautiful concept, love the story, but they have beaten that horse to death, and I'm kind of tired of it. I don't need any more Secret Wars storylines. This one is important in modern comic books or whatever. Develop a different name, that's fine. But I don't need any more Secret Wars. But
I will say this. So this is not this Secret Wars I just showed you. That's not going to be the basis of the one that's going to be in the MCU. It's going to be that one from 2015. But why is that important? Because the concept is that you've got all these different multiverse universes, and each has its own Marvel universe, right? When you think about Marvel, there are a tremendous amount of characters that come from either other dimensions, or other time periods, which is kind of the same thing as a different dimension, because they're possible time periods. You've got characters like the Second Phoenix, Rachel Grey. You've got Bishop of the X-Men. You've got Miles Morales. I mean, the list goes on and on. There are a tremendous amount of characters that we have in the 616 that actually came from other universes. How do you introduce all of these characters and all of these concepts into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that you've already established, right? Like, you just saw this movie with Doctor Strange, and we know from the trailers, this isn't a spoiler, that Charles Xavier makes an appearance. In fact, it's the slight spoiler. It's the X-Men animated series version of Charles Xavier, specifically, right down to his green suit and the blue tie. It's the exact same Charles Xavier from.
Hold on, let me just interject this. One of the things that I geeked out about this movie, this isn't a spoiler because Paul mentioned that Xavier's in the movie. In the movie, right? Charles Xavier is about to use his power, and in the comic book, I mean, in the cartoon, what does he do? He puts his hands to his head, and then you see these rings start emanating from his mind. And when that shit happened in the comic book, in the movie, I was like, oh my god, it happened. I could die a happy man now.
They actually played the theme music from the X-Men animated series when he appeared on screen.
There's just a couple little notes of it underneath the main noise. Going on.
That was just dope. That was dope.
If you didn't like this movie, you just don't like good things. I mean, there's no reason for you, especially if you're a comic book fan and an MCU fan, to not like this movie. It made no sense. And Askia Jones,
the yellow chair,
right down to the yellow chair. Absolutely, it was. You're a hater if you didn't like this movie.
Yeah, I mean, so why is the multiverse movie so important? Understand, the reason we have not had the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Namor, Spider-Man, the reason the MCU did not start with all of these characters is because Marvel had sold off the rights to those characters. They sold off Namor to Universal, along with Hulk. They sold off to 20th Century Fox, Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four. I'm sorry, to Sony, Spider-Man. To 20th Century Fox, they sold the Fantastic Four and X-Men. So basically, all of these studios had their property rights, and Marvel could not incorporate these characters. One of the things people know about me, I hate the Inhumans. Why do I hate the Inhumans? Because when Marvel realized that they could not get the X-Men rights back from 20th Century Fox to include in their Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they knew they were going to make mad money, Marvel went out of its way to distance the X-Men characters, any mutant characters, out of the 616. They went so far, if you're a comic book fan of the X-Men, they went so far as exile the X-Men to limbo during this period of time. They literally, not figuratively, literally put the X-Men in Illyana Rasputin's limbo to sideline them out of the 616 universe. And they tried to supplant them with the Inhumans. That's where you have all of these Inhuman characters come out. Your Ms. Marvel, your Mosaic, all of these Inhuman characters came because Marvel was trying to replace the mutants and their role in the 616 universe with the Inhumans. That's why I can't stand
that's why they were part of the Marvel's Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they really were trying to.
Because they couldn't use mutants. In fact, whenever they had someone who had natural abilities, they said they were gifted. They even had a television show called The Gifted because they, as sort of a throwback to the concept, they couldn't use the term the mutants because it was protected. So,
but they were using They were using X-Men characters and had their names and everything.
Right. Yeah. So why is all of this significant? Because now Marvel's bought back the rights to all these properties, but Marvel Cinematic Universe has already gone on without them. How do you now introduce, oh yeah, by the way, Xavier's been around here since the very beginning? How do you bring in an Apocalypse who's been around for thousands of years in the universe? How do you bring in the Fantastic Four who would have had their accident, over a decade ago? How do you incorporate all these characters into your cinematic universe? You have a multiverse. You have incursions. You have a major storyline. And at the end of that Secret War storyline, you've got one Marvel Cinematic Universe with all these characters in it. This is why I've been saying this is the most important film Marvel's ever done, because they've introduced that concept.
Well, yes, that is a way that they can do it, yes. Or they can retcon things and make it that the Fantastic Four, as an example, had their accident after the fact.
That's too complicated. Incursions solve the whole Secret War storyline. It solves the entire problem easily.
It's not complicated at all, especially for people who aren't familiar with these properties like you and I are. Okay, what you have is, for example, with the Fantastic Four, Reed Richards and them could go on their excursion and get their powers now.
Yeah.
As far as the X-Men are concerned, it could be explained that his uh, wards were too young to get involved. There are a lot of Paul's way is one way that it can be done, absolutely, but there are other plausible ways that these characters can also be introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Going back though, he mentioned how the actual intellectual property of these characters were sold off to all these companies.
Yeah.
In 2022, sitting here, we think that Marvel is this big juggernaut as far as a company is concerned. This wasn't the case back 30 years ago in the 90s. Marvel as a company, were having financial issues. And so, in order to try to raise capital, they sold off the intellectual property to get movies made, let these other companies make movies. I don't know if there was any profit sharing, probably not. They just, you know, sold it, and then they did whatever they wanted to with it. The only thing that I can recall that we got the sorry Eric Bana led Hulk that came out in 2005, I think. We had the Fantastic Four movies, which I personally didn't think were bad. I didn't think the Fantastic Four movies were bad at all. We got the X-Men movies, which you got Blade that kicked things off in 98. Then you had the X-Men in 2000, Spider-Man in 2001. So roughly 98, late 90s is when we started really getting this influx of superhero movies. We had Daredevil, we had Elektra. All of these properties were divvied out. And then once Marvel Studios was created, and
in 2008.
And God love him, I don't think not Kevin Feige, but Jon Favreau gets enough credit, because had Iron Man been ass, we would not have a MCU right now.
Right.
Jon Favreau, God love him, took a risk on Robert Downey Jr., God love him, because a lot of folks may not remember, but in the 90s, Robert Downey Jr. was a drug addict. He was known more for being in and out of jail than he was for doing movies. So Paul and I back then said that he was a perfect choice because his life somewhat mirrored the troubles that Tony Stark had, and he knocked it.
I was thrilled when it was announced he was gonna be cast as Tony Stark. I was like, that's the perfect dude to play him.
He was absolutely perfect, and he knocked it out of the park. But once Marvel Studios was created and became successful, that's when Marvel and their parent company Disney started gobbling up these other companies so they could bring that intellectual property back in-house. So from a real world perspective, that's why we've not had these characters interact. From a movie perspective, they now have that ability, which is why we've seen certain characters now appear in this movie. And I remember conversations that Paul and I had years ago in reference to getting what we now have. And as an example, Paul was arguing against this because, whatever, but I wanted to see certain people in these movies. And as an example, I said, okay, well, let's say we have the Fantastic Four movie, and let's say that Ben and Alicia get married. Well, you have Tobey Maguire appear in the movie with a camera around his neck. He doesn't have to say a word. He can just be there taking pictures, right? Or I said something along the lines of having Hugh Jackman appear on a street corner or whatever, trying to figure out ways around the whole intellectual property thing without using character names or costumes.
I actually read an article in which the director said that he wanted to do that exact same thing with Hugh Jackman, but the attorney said no. They're not. Yeah. It's not worth the litigation.
Right. And it could have been done, but now we're at a point where we don't have to worry about that. So we're now in some halcyon days when it comes to comic book movies and properties. Paperbacks and soundtracks said the problem I have with the multiverse is there are no consequences. Death doesn't hit hard in the MCU. Characters can always come back. I'm not a fan of that. Dude, then you're not a fan of comic books, because how many major characters have been dead and have been revived? I mean, the whole premise of the X-Men now is that despite their death, they are resurrected. You know, so that's this part of comic books.
Just
There have been-
comics. It's just
yeah,
comics.
yeah. There have been some comments that have popped up that I didn't catch or whatever.
Gordon had said he took a risk on RDJ when the insurance companies would not, with regard to
did.
Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau did, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, I honestly don't think that he gets the credit that he deserves.
With regard to the comment by Amir, the Scarlet Witch, if she comes back,
comment? I didn't see the comment.
The one you just read, the paperbacks and soundtracks. That's
oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, is Scarlet Witch dead?
She's not.
Do I care? Is the bigger question. She's run her course. There's no other storylines that she could do that I'd be interested in. What, get rid of all the mutants? Like that'd be like 20 years, 10 years down the road before we get to the point where we're saying get rid of the mutants. I don't even know if they want to do that. They're gonna have a hard enough time putting the mutants into the MCU than have some Scarlet Witch say that let's get rid of all the mutants. And it's not necessary because they kind of already done that whole storyline spun out of her desire to be reunited with her children. We just did that. So there's nothing really else of significance that Scarlet Witch has to contribute to the MCU. There isn't.
Well, I mean, they can, but even though a lot of this stuff has a basis in the source material, i.e. comic books, they can still create new storylines and new interesting storylines. I mean, they've got some brilliant writers out there. And mad shout out to Sam Raimi. Spider-Man 3 was ass. Spider-Man 3 was just horrible.
That wasn't his fault.
Spider-Man 2 was, up until the MCU, probably top 5 best comic book based superhero movie ever. Spider-Man 2 is just a phenomenal film.
Facts.
But it has moved down the list because of how good these other things are. It's still a very good movie. He did not do 3 as well. It may have been some interference with the movie studio. I don't know. But he is back on his game. You know, there were certain horror elements in it that you could pick up from some of his other previous work. I mean, it was good. And shout out to Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman did not the soundtrack, but the score for this movie. For those who don't know, Danny Elfman did the score for the original Batman.
And Batman the Animated Series.
Wait, say it again?
And Batman the Animated Series.
That I did not know. I don't know if that's correct, but I'm not going to argue that point. But I know Danny Elfman from the 80s. He used to belong to this rock group called Oingo Boingo.
He was?
Danny Elfman was part of a group called Oingo
Boingo. They had a hot song in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, probably, yeah. So that's where Danny Elfman came from. And so when I remember seeing his name on the title with the Batman movie, I'm like, what the hell is he doing here? But yeah. Can we move over the Avenger Sphere and be in the Mutant Sphere with X-Men and Magneto?
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, now we have the ability to introduce these characters, you know.
Just have Marvel redo the entire X-Men franchise from the beginning. I don't want to see anything from the past. You don't need to bring Hugh Jackman back. You don't even need to bring back. We had Patrick Stewart, great. Recast and move on. Start it from scratch.
Well,
and have it done the Marvel way.
Well, and I don't necessarily disagree, but James McAvoy is a very, very good actor. He's a very, very good Professor X. Michael Fassbender is a phenomenal actor. He is, in my humble opinion, top 10 best actors of his generation.
He is, but let's face facts. Magneto should be no less than 90 years old if we're following the same background storyline of him being from World War II. Yeah. The smarter play would be to have him be a refugee from like Croatia,
Bosnia or something,
or Bosnia. You know, basically the same type of ethnic cleansing.
Yep.
But except I guess he wouldn't be Jewish; he'd be Muslim.
But they have to listen. That's part of his identity. They have to make him Jewish. Yeah. They have to make him Jewish.
But how do you do that storyline?
Don't know.
Holocaust.
I'm not a writer. I don't know. But Magneto has to be Jewish. Does Kitty Pryde have to be Jewish? Not necessarily. Does Ben Grimm have to be Jewish?
It's a big part of her. It's a
Not
big part of her
necessarily.
character. She brings up the fact she's Jewish all the time.
That's fine. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, Magneto specifically has to be Jewish.
Yeah. So you're gonna have to figure out how to do a background. Perhaps it could just be, look, I wasn't raised in the camps, but my grandmother was. And my grandmother, I used to watch my grandmother in the horror stories of the Holocaust, and that's why I fight for not making
There's
that
a
happen.
lot of different ways that they can do it, but yes, you're absolutely right. He doesn't need to be that old. So that is an extremely good point. So
Rico says, I think we're definitely going to get Curse of the Mutants. Wow, that would be. I mean, Rico just dipped down into the well with that one. You have to be a hardcore X-Men fan or Blade fan to even know what the hell Rico's talking about right now. Curse of the Mutants was I don't remember the years that was, but probably early 2000s storyline in which the mutants crossed Dracula and the vampires. It's the same storyline that led to Jubilee becoming a vampire. But Blade, for all intents and purposes, kind of joined the X-Men to help them fight against the rise of vampirism and their cross references with the mutants. Which leads to my next question. And Rico, if you're watching this, I want your opinion. Is Blade a mutant? His mother was bitten.
No, he doesn't have an X gene.
Belly.
He doesn't have an X gene. That's what makes mutants is the X gene.
That's a good point.
His mother was infected with a vampiric virus, not the X gene. So no, he by definition he's not.
By definition, he's not mutant. Okay.
Yeah.
Good point.
But let's talk about some comic books. And one of the ones, and it's going to be a two-part conversation. Naomi came out this week, issue number 3 of 6. Very good book. But on the heels of this, picked this up on Wednesday. Later that day, got news that Naomi the series has been canceled after one season.
There was a television show?
I watched the first 2 episodes, and I'm gonna tell you, I was done after the first 2 episodes.
Do people really care that show was canceled?
A well done series. I'm sorry.
Do people really care that show was canceled? I mean, be real.
No, they don't, and it's a shame because here you have a story about a teen black girl who has superpowers, who puts her on par with Superman and other powerhouses in the DC universe, and I just really didn't care about her. You know, when Black Lightning dropped, I mean, that was must see TV for me. I was there every Thursday, and then when they moved it, I followed that around the week to watch that series. The CW can do some good things with these properties.
They can,
but this
those first 2 seasons of Black Lightning were fire.
Yes, they were. I mean, most everything that they put out, Arrow, Flash. I wasn't really into Legends of Tomorrow, to be quite honest with you.
I never liked Legends of Tomorrow, but Flash and Arrow were definitely good shows.
Yes, right, exactly. And Black Lightning was good. And Supergirl, I guess you can count, but that morphed over from CBS. Stargirl is very good.
Rico says Naomi was horrible. I really tried to like it.
Yeah, I did as well. You know, and I mentioned earlier how I wasn't into Miss Marvel and American Chavez because it was about teen girls. But when it comes to this show, as far as free entertainment, yeah, it's very Stargirl I'm talking about.
But it's not the teenage girl thing, because in Black Lightning was kind of Black Lightning in name only. The show was really about his 2 daughters, right?
Well, no, I'm not talking about Stargirl. I'm talking about Stargirl specifically.
No, I get that, but I'm saying one of the comments you made earlier is I wasn't really into, some of the teenage girl characters. It's not my thing, but you could get into it watching Black Lightning. Why? Because it was a well done show.
Yep.
It was
done.
A
black show. It was a black show. Naomi was not a black show. Naomi was the show that had a black lead in it.
Right. Right. So there's nothing really appealing for black people on there than seeing an image of a black face on the screen, but there's no black connection. There's no
Nothing.
connection to the Black experience that was ever
Black
shown
Lightning
in the show.
definitely was. That Black Lightning was blackety black. I mean, they were, yeah.
Behind the scenes says, in my opinion, Naomi is a flat and boring character. Without the DC push and branding, I don't think this character would rise from the indie scene. Are you talking about the television show or the comic book?
Probably both, but that's with any character. Once a company gets behind it, if a company doesn't get behind it, how are we as fans and readers and viewers gonna find a particular character?
He says Joe Mullen is a lot cooler. Well, that's facts. That's facts.
Who's Joe Mullen?
I like Naomi the comic book, but Joe Mullen. What did you just say?
Joe Mullen. Who's that?
You don't know who Joe Mullen? Far Sector? Okay,
I didn't read Far Sector.
Jesus Christ, man! You haven't read Far Sector? That's all right.
Stop.
Joe Mullen is she's a dope character. Shout out to N.K. Jemisin. That's just one of the most slept on. You want to talk about a sister that needs her own show? Sergeant Mullen, Far Sector, Afrofuturism, HBO Max television show. That would be dope.
A lot of these shows, yeah, because they have Disney Plus. The HBO Max needs to get some of these properties and do something with them. Yeah, absolutely. But no,
Amir says, so I have a question about Naomi. I read volume 1 and waited for volume 2, but I feel like I missed a whole lot of her story. What in the world am I missing in between? I really wanted to read the series. All right, so I can answer this question. All right, so after volume 1, that story literally continues in Action Comics 1040. I'll bring it up for you, Amir. Give me 1 second. It is action. Oh.
While he's looking up that too, she pops up a lot in Justice League. She's a member of the Justice League now, so in the current iteration of Justice League. But before she makes that appearance or whatever, I guess Paul's going to bring up what else she was in. But that's where I know her from. Like, I read the original Naomi, and then because I read Justice League,
right here. This is Action Comics 1015. So where Naomi, the series ends, it immediately picks up in Action Comics 1015, where she meets Batman and Superman. And then it continues in, that's the variant, continues in 1016, which is this one. And from there, she goes over to Young Justice, issue number 10, which is it Young Justice? Is that what it's called? Young Justice, right? Issue 10, which is here. So she goes from meeting Batman and Superman. They're saying, "Whoa, girl, where'd you get these powers from?" She's like, "I don't know. I know what I'm doing, but I just stopped the world incursion from these aliens from my universe." And they're like, "Wow, you seem mad powerful." She's like, "Yeah, I don't know what to do with my powers." She's like, "We got the place for you." And then they hook him up with Justice, the Young Justice group. So she's there for the rest of the run from issues 10 through 20 of Young Justice. So that's where she goes next. And from there, she goes to Justice League. And that is Justice League Volume 3. When did she join the Justice League? That's the question. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it's Volume 3.
I know it's Volume 3. Here it is. Yeah. Here it is. She joins Justice League 61. Volume 3, 61 is where she joins the Justice League. and she's there for the rest of that run up through. It just now ended with issue 75.
Yeah, and then but volume 2 of Naomi kind of coincides or takes place before the end of Justice League. So yeah.
So there you have it, Amir. I just gave you the entire Naomi rundown. It's easy to collect her entire series.
Yeah, but I think Ava DuVernay was behind the Naomi.
I skipped some comments here.
Series. Hold on a second. I think Ava DuVernay was behind the series, but her track record just isn't good. At this point, she does not have a good track record. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I heard that they canceled her New Gods program or New Gods project, I was very, very happy about that because I'm a huge New Gods fan. I love Jack Kirby's Fourth World. I was not enamored with the fact that they put her in charge of it. So, yeah.
Behind the scenes said, hell yeah, she needs a show. I think he's referring to Joe Mullen.
Yep.
Tamiko says, Joe is the coolest Green Lantern next to our Emerald Knight. Facts. Absolutely. And Amir says, oh, wow, I missed a whole story arch. Yeah, there's a few, bro. Few.
Hey, who's that Hispanic chick, Green Lantern?
That's Jessica Cruz.
I like her. I think she's cool.
Behind the scenes says, Rocket would have been way more interesting as a show. How does Naomi get a push over Milestone characters again? Icon is possible with a CW budget. Look at how they're doing Superman. Well, a couple things on that. One, Milestone has their own deal with DC, and Milestone has their own plans for their own characters. Two, I sure as hell don't want CW anywhere near the Milestone universe. No, sir. No, thank you. No, thank you. If they're smart, they'll make a cut deal with HBO Max to release the Milestone universe, give it the budget it needs and the publicity it needs. I don't want any of the Milestone universe even affiliated with CW whatsoever.
I can see Static. As a CW.
No.
You may not want it, but
nope.
I can see Static as a CW show.
Not the new Static. Emo Static? No.
I can see it. I absolutely could.
Chad Kinsler says, yo, what's up, y'all? What's up, man? Thank you for being here. Amir says, damn, I wish they would have left her story in her book. Got me spending all this extra ciabatta. Facts, bro. But look, those issues I mentioned, they're not expensive. Those are back issue bin issues. You're not spending more than $4, $5 for any of those issues. If you're paying $5, you're probably paying a lot. Those are all back issue issues. The back bin issues.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes says Nubia, Vixen, Bumblebee, Joe Mullen, all would have enticed more people. Bendis has a monopoly on newer black mainstream characters. Ironheart, Miles, Naomi, who's next? That's a fair criticism, man. I mean, Bendis, the hottest black young characters have connections to Bendis. Now, for those of you who don't know, Brian Michael Bendis, who's a white writer, he has a I think his wife is black and he has a black daughter as well. And he specifically said that he wanted in the creation of Miles to show more representation. Like he saw the need for representation when he's looking at his kid's face. And specifically with Naomi, he had her in mind when he designed the character of Naomi, was his own daughter. Naomi's last name is McDuffie because Brian Michael Bendis is actually a big fan of the man and the works Dwayne McDuffie. So she's named after Dwayne McDuffie. So that's a hell of an homage by him. So shout out to him for that. But, you know, he's had ties to Ironheart, Miles, and Naomi. I mean, he has, because he is who he is. And if you look, let me back up a sec. I recently did an interview with the writer Jeffrey Thorne, who's the writer on Blood Syndicate. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't read it, please check it out. It's on the site. One of the things he talks about, I mentioned to him, he was also the writer of King in Black, Black Panther, which Mark and I have talked about on this show plenty of times as being the best one-shot Black Panther I've ever read, if not just one of the best one-shots I've ever read, period. I thanked him for that and told him as such. And he said that he actually loves writing T'Challa, would love to write more Black Panther, pitched a major story to Marvel for a Black Panther series. But he says, he gave some insight as to how the comic book industry works. He's like, in the comic book industry, there are some people that are part of the cool, what he referred to as the cool kids club. That's your Jonathan Hickmans, your Brian Michael Bendis's, your Chip Zdarsky's. That's the cool kids club. And these guys have the wherewithal, but if they pitch something, Marvel's just going to give it to them and let them do it. If you're not part of the insiders group, your pitches, there are numerous pitches that are made that are just of great ideas that never get made. And he says that's part of the problem of, big industry comic book companies. Some people get greenlit automatically. Others have to go through a big, long process and wait. And so, Brian Michael Bendis has used his cool kid status, to his credit, to try to be more inclusive, show some more inclusiveness and diversity in the characters he has the power to get made. Because not a lot of writers have that power where they can say, hey, I'm going to put this Black kid in the book. And they're like, all right, fine, go ahead, do it. Unfortunately, a lot of Black creators don't have that power in these big companies. And that's why supporting getting more Black creators and supporting the works of Black creators, regardless of what characters they do, is so important, because you got to get their foot in the door in order for them to finally get in positions of creating our own characters and having an influence on our own characters.
When it comes to any industry, no matter where you work, no matter what you do, there's always a bit of politics, schmoozing, butt kissing, brown nosing, however you want to say it. It's unfortunate that somebody who is as talented as he is has found himself where he hasn't been able to get the automatic green light on whatever it is that he wants to do.
Behind the scenes says, good for him to use the status to get this done. That doorway seems closed for other writers,
Because Jeffrey Thorne is a very good writer. And, I just started reading this Blood Syndicate, and I haven't finished it yet, but, the panels that I've read, are very good. And other things that I've read from him. I want to say he was right. He wrote a Green Lantern, right? He wrote this last iteration of Green Lantern, right? Thorne.
Who, Jeffrey Thorne? Yes.
Right. So
somebody on Facebook said
he's a very good writer, and he needs the ability to showcase his talent, and he should be given, the same leeway that a Hickman or a Bendis or anybody else does.
Al Kennan, our law school classmate, said, I can get with that, but why didn't Bendis advocate more Black writers and artists to be hired and given properties to produce? You don't necessarily know he hasn't. From what I understand about Brian Michael Bendis, that sounds like something he would do. Behind the scenes says, a celebrity like Keanu Reeves is doing his thing with Berserker. It might take something like that for us to get some good pitches done. There's some truth to that. What?
You'd hate that it would have to come to that because, prior to Berserker, I don't know that Keanu had a history of comic book writing. And I like Berserker. I have no issues with Berserker. But, Jeffrey Thorne has been around the industry now for some time. Yeah. And if somebody who is as accomplished as he is, can't automatically get a green light on something, what does that say about that particular industry? So
it does. That's exactly the point. For example, we interviewed Rodney Barnes, and Rodney Barnes pointed out that he pitched a while ago a story to Marvel for Luke Cage. He wanted to write a Luke Cage story in time for his birthday, which is next month. Marvel never, and he pitched it, but we don't have an upcoming Luke Cage book by Rodney Barnes. And Rodney Barnes is a highly accomplished writer, not only in comic books, but in television and films. But right now, he's got one of the hottest comic books in the world. One that was nominated for a, what is it? The Eisner. Thank you. The Eisner. He was a nominee for the Eisner in Philadelphia. And someone with that type of clout, that type of status, doesn't get automatically greenlit. That tells you a lot about this industry. Behind the scenes says it's never about what you know, but who you know. Absolutely, facts.
That's what a lot of these industries. But when you've got somebody again, who has the experience and the success,
Thank you.
I would think that you would automatically give them the green light, because ultimately the goal is to make money. And if these people have shown that they can make compelling stories and move units, then why would you not give them what they want? Right. Who is the current publisher of Marvel right now, or the editor-in-chief, I should say? Who's the current editor-in-chief of Marvel?
CB Cebulski?
I have no idea who that is, obviously. Well, that may very well need to change.
The comic industry seems like the pro wrestling scene. They don't want wrestlers. They want celebrities and entertainers. Only a few wrestlers get a force push from higher ups. There's some truth to that. Having a well-known brand name sort of writer, a rock star writer, is what they fight over these days. Guys like Chip Zdarsky and Donnie Cates. These guys are like rock stars, and the companies fight over these guys. If Donnie Cates says, "You know what? I got an idea for a Luke Cage book," you think Luke Cage won't get made?
At a certain point, these big publishers, the big three, I should say, they are going to drive away these very, very talented artists and creators if they're not being listened to or getting work, because there are a whole bunch of different avenues out there for them nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Plus you've got all these different new companies, Aftershock, Boom, Black Mask, etc. So Marvel, DC, Image are not the only game in town anymore.
Right. The indies are making a come up hard. Aftershock, Scout, Black Cape, Black Mask, just
there are a lot out there.
Godhood, Concrete. I mean, there's so many indie comic book makers out there beyond Dark Horse and Image that are killing it right now.
I don't consider Image an independent anymore. Maybe when they first dropped in the 90s, but no,
I'll tell you why Image is still independent. Not because of their corporate structure. I agree with you. Corporate structure wise, they're as big and sophisticated as Marvel and DC. However, Image still has independent creators. Their format is industry, but their product is still not industry, because it's still made up of indie creators.
That's fine, but they
don't have a Image universe of all these characters.
Right. Yes, right. However, as a consumer, I see a bunch of Image titles, even though they may not cross over with each other the way DC and Marvel do. As a consumer, I put them up there with like Chevy and Ford, or and whatever. They're another big company. They're not some new Kia that's just coming on the scene like an Aftershock or something. So
thank you behind the scene for love about the live stream. Appreciate that. Tamiko says, I'm mad at Marvel torched the Luke Cage series from Hoche Anderson. Yeah, I mean that was a raw deal. That was a completed book and they took it off the shelves. That just seems wrong. I know he probably still got paid for his work, but that's a slap in the face. I think they made it up to him. He just announced yesterday or today that he has a new Marvel series coming out. He can't talk about it, but he's up there with a whole bunch of heavy hitters, top artists and writers, and they're working on some new series. I think it's a Spider-Man series. I just don't know if it's Peter Parker or Miles. But the promo image he released had a black background with a red spider, which is Miles' symbol. So it might be a new Miles big crossover event type thing going on.
David Walker did some art for a Luke Cage series, didn't he?
David Walker's a writer. He doesn't really do a lot of art primarily.
Who was it? Who's the artist? Not David Walker.
David Walker wrote on a Luke Cage series. Sanford Green was his artist.
Sanford Green. That's it.
Yeah.
Sanford Green. He did some art for a Luke Cage series, yes?
Yes. He
And
did. It was actually a Power Man and Iron Fist series.
right, yeah, I didn't like his art on that. He did not look he did not look like I have become accustomed to seeing Luke Cage look, and I did not like his art on that. Now on Bitterroot, phenomenal, love it on Bitterroot, but not for that character. Absolutely not.
Let's see. So Al, our boy Al says, so should a group of black writers do what Milestone and Image did? Come together, create their own comics, and make Marvel and DC come to them wanting more product. Well, that's interesting. I mean, there are black-owned comic book companies. There's plenty of them, actually. There's quite a bit of them. We know because they come into space all the time and post up stuff in Black Superheroes Forever, our sister group. But there are companies, there are Concrete Comics, Advent Comics, Godhood, Black Sands just had a big thing where they were on Shark Tank and got funding. Black Sands is doing some really incredible stuff. If you haven't checked them out, download the Black Sands app. You can read their comics for free in the app. Dope comics. So there are plenty of black-owned and with black-owned comic books with black creators in them with black characters.
But
hold on, let me finish. What Al is proposing is beyond that, the top tier black comic writers and artists, those independent guys. You got your David Walkers, your Rodney Barnes, as you mentioned, the Sanford Green, your Olivier Copiel, your Torrin Clarks, your Swaby. If you got these guys together and say, we're going to form our own company, right? Can you imagine when you get that top tier black talent, kind of like what Milestone did, and form their own company? That would be incredible. But the question is, it can be formed. The question is, are y'all going to support it?
And would it be successful? But for me as a consumer, that's not the issue. For me, the issue is the characters that I know, love, and support, who I've been collecting for 40 plus years. I want to see some of these guys I'll support their new stuff. Yeah. But I want to see these people on the stuff that I already know and love and am familiar with. I've been pitching Jeffrey Thorne for Black Panther for a couple of years now. That's what I want to see. On a Sam Wilson book or whoever it is, Luke Cage book. I want to see these creators on stuff that I already know and love. Behind the scenes says Charlemagne could literally outsell a bunch of these rock star writers because of his celebrity status. I think he's bigger. He is a bigger deal than initially thought, and you're not wrong.
Yeah, he already wrote. For those of you who don't know, Charlemagne the God's been dabbling in comic book writing. He did a couple stories for Marvel. He wrote a most recently, I think it was a Blue Marvel story in Marvel Voices. And he now has announced that he's going to partner with, who's the artist? If one of y'all remember, tell us. But they're gonna do their own comics. Let's see what else we got. I always felt that if the top independent black comics came together and created their own universe, they could rival anyone. You would think that. But the question is, are they going to be successful? Because understand, and my man Rich talked about this in one of his lives recently. He pulled out the stat from Comicron. And people are like, well, black people don't buy comics. That's not true. In fact, I think the stats showed that about 13% of comic books are purchased by black fans. And considering the US population, that's pretty close to the mark of specifically what our representation is in the United States. So black people do buy their fair share of comics. So that's not the question. If every black person bought all the black comics, would that be enough to make the comic book successful? I don't know the answer to that.
And it would also be how, obviously how you define success. And, in this industry, I'm assuming moving units to making money is the definition of success. And, with Marvel and DC having, 70, 80 plus year history, I think it's a bit presumptuous to think that these black creators will be able to quote unquote challenge Marvel and DC. Might they be able to create compelling characters and stuff? Absolutely. But, Image Comics, as an example, it was an exciting event when it first happened, but the market wasn't as saturated then as it is now with comic book companies and things of that nature. So I don't know that it would be as successful as whoever it was that said that may think.
You have to have a product that is universally.
You have to put out something that's compelling, that people actually want to buy, and that they actually do buy. And it will take them a while to be able to say that they can compete with, the big three, as I call them. Now, if they start getting characters that are optioned that can bring more eyes to their product, like when I heard that Bitterroot was optioned, and I think, who was it? Regina King was supposedly attached to it. I got really excited, because I thoroughly enjoy that book, because I think it's a brilliant book. And if it gets optioned, that means that more people will become familiar with these products. So, but no, I don't think it would be a success right away. Eventually, 20, 30 years perhaps, but definitely not within the first 5.
I think the key to, so part of the key, not the entire thing, but part of the key also is having universal characters that are with stories human stories that anyone could appreciate. I tell you, one of the most successful black character runs recently in modern times, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. That series ran for 47 issues straight. A little black girl who's the smartest person in the Marvel universe, and her dinosaur, who she switches minds with when there's a full moon. It sounds crazy, but obviously somebody was buying it because it lasted for 47 issues.
Is she an Inhuman?
She is an Inhuman, correct.
Yeah. I've not read one issue of hers.
And that's gonna have to be retconned in the MCU because they declared Reed Richards to be the smartest guy in the Marvel universe. And we all know that's not true.
The only time I've read anything with her is the Dark Ages storyline. That is a pretty good storyline by Tom Taylor. That's the only thing of hers that I've read. I just had no interest in that at all.
Problem is, everyone would want their characters to be the Superman.
That was the issue with Image when it first dropped. Every group was an X-Men ripoff. Everyone. Young Bloods. I can't even remember everything that dropped.
Young Bloods, Wildcats, Cyber Force.
Yep. Everything was
Codename Strike.
Everything was a ripoff of the X-Men. And whoever said that, I'm assuming it's Al, but whoever said that, yes, you're absolutely right. Every character will be a ripoff of Superman. Absolutely.
Azores Tiger Comics, what's up? Welcome to the show. Please drop your questions and comments in the chat below. Let's see. We've got, if I was writing and drawing comics, I would create black versions of leading comic book characters, put them within a black environment and world, and give them stories that focuses on black-centric issues. That's called basically most black independent comics, to be honest with you, Al. I mean, there's a lot of smaller black independent comic companies that are out there. And I think part of the problem with many of them is you see the same tropes. They're either black versions of existing, mainstream characters or white characters, or they're just tropes of, I am this, I get my power from this ancient African god, and now I fight crime and drugs in my urban neighborhood, which is just really way overdone. Good evening to everyone. Yes. Thank you. We're getting a lot of people from Facebook.
That's a good thing. I'm surprised. I mean, it's a Friday night and it's 11 o'clock on the East Coast.
So let's talk about the other books that we had from our reads of the week, because you mentioned Naomi. You also said you wanted to talk about Blood Syndicate.
No, well, I said that, yeah, but the other day, but you said don't because of whatever.
I didn't really say don't. I said I want to talk about that because I just interviewed Jeffrey Thorne. So, as I mentioned before, just recently had a chance to speak with Jeffrey Thorne, the writer on Blood Syndicate. This is Milestone 2.0. Milestone 2.0 has, for the most part, been good. Has it been perfect? No. But it has been good. Parts of it have been really, really good. The highest point, the best part of Milestone 2.0 so far, for me, hands down, not even a question, Icon and Rocket. That series is fire. I dare anyone to say different. That series is fire. Reggie Hudlin knocked it out the park with Leon Chills and Doug Braithwaite in that series. I love that series. I can't wait for them to bring it back. Excellent, excellent thing. And here's the reason why. The most successful thing you can do with Milestone, and understand, been a Milestone fan since day one, since the Marvel previews came out the series came out in 93. I had the Marvel's preview in 1992. I was hooked then. Bought the entire Milestone run when they originally came out. Some of those were like 99 cents cover price. So, day one Marvel fan. You cannot find someone who was looking forward. You cannot find someone who was looking forward to Milestone more than me. Knocked it out the park with Icon and Rocket. Static. Disappointing at first, honestly, because this is what you have to do to make these things good. You have to honor the original source material for old heads like me, but you also need to take that foundation of the original source material and expand upon it. You don't want to regurgitate what you did before. You want to take what was done before and expand upon it. Add some more characters. Make the world a little bit bigger. Make the storylines a little bit more complicated, but remain true to the source material. That's what Reggie Hudlin did with Icon and Rocket. Static, unfortunately, deviated from the source material. And I'm not talking about the Big Bang being a Black Lives Matter thing. I actually like that part because I thought it was relevant for the times. But the way they did Virgil Hawkins as this sort of emotional, sort of emo kid who just seemed kind of moody and depressed, that's not Virgil Hawkins. Virgil Hawkins is like, Peter Parker or Miles Morales before Miles Morales even existed. He was a brilliant science kid who dropped a lot of one-liners and was very positive, much like you saw in the Static Shock cartoon. That's Virgil Hawkins. The kid that we had at the beginning of the Static series was not him. The last 2 issues of Static season 1, they finally got his voice right. And those last 2 issues were legit. Hardware, which in the original Milestone line, that was my favorite book. Hardware was hands down my favorite book. But Hardware, honestly, has suffered with the delays because that book's still not done. All the other Milestone books are done. Hardware is still waiting on issue 6. Too many delays. The story seems to kind of drag a little bit, honestly. The last issue seemed a lot of filler. I don't know what's going on with that. And it has sort of the same problem. You want to stick to the source material. They didn't include the original source material in Hardware 2.0. If I've never read Hardware before, and I'm just reading Hardware 2.0 for the first time, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know who these women characters are, the Bakari and the other woman. I don't know who they are. I don't know the relationship to the main character, Curtis Metcalf. I'm not understanding the significance of the relationships here. And the backstory is not really all that fleshed out. And if you're making this for newer readers, they don't know. There's no pound. They have no dog in the fight. They don't have
no frame of reference.
There's no frame of reference, and there's no basis for you to really care about these characters at all. It just seemed to sort of lost sort of the heart of it, honestly. And I'm ashamed, and I'm ashamed to say that, but because I love Hardware and I'm a big Dennis Cowan fan, but it was disappointing, honestly. But this book right here, Blood Syndicate, this book was fire. Jeffrey Thorne knocked this out the park. If you have not read my interview, please go on there, read it. You understand this guy is a fan. He is a Milestone fan, but more specifically, he is a Blood Syndicate fan. He was begging to do this book, and it shows. He cares about the characters. He cares about the universe. He has a lot of ideas in his head, and you can tell from what he has said, what he has planned for this universe is fire. He actually swore me to secrecy. There's a couple things I'm not allowed to tell you that he told me off camera, but this is going to be a dope series. That's all I got to say on that. So Blood Syndicate, this was my #1 read for the week.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't finished reading it. The other books that I've read were not Black centric.
Well, before we do the non-Black centric books on Black Comic Lord's channel, let's finish up the other Black books. We got what else we got? We have I Am Batman #9. Shout out to my boy Amir if you're still watching. I know you love this series as much as I do. This book is dope. If you're not reading I Am Batman, if you are even remotely a Batman fan, you would have to love this book. What John Ridley is doing, John Ridley's got I Am Batman and he's got Black Panther, and he's making both these books good at the same time. I have my issues with the dialogue with T'Challa, but that's a separate issue. Overall, it's still a good book. This book is fire. Long story short, he's more than simply just the Black Batman. He's the son of Lucius Fox. He's not in Gotham. He's in New York. And that's a whole other component, because Gotham's not the backdrop here. And Gotham's its own character. This is New York. New York is its own character. It's got New York problems that are unique to that city in this book. What I loved about this particular issue is this is the 9th issue. So we're 9 issues in. The first few issues, the first 7 issues, this dude was feeling himself, right? He's like, I'm Batman, man. I'm a Black Batman. I'm taking off this little lower part of my mask. I'm gonna let people see my black skin and know there's a Black Batman in New York. And he's got his motorcycle, he's got his gear, and he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna have all those gadgets like Bruce Wayne. I'm not gonna rely on gadgets. I'm gonna rely on I got hands for these criminals. I'm gonna use my hands on criminals. I ain't trying to use a bunch of batarangs and all types of gadgets and stuff. I'm just gonna take it to these fools. And he was doing really well until he met his match last issue and got his ass whooped. So in this issue starts with him being shook. My man is shook. He's like, man, I thought I was a shit, and I'm not. Like this. He starts questioning everything, and he's questioning whether he's good enough. And that type of introspection was really fascinating, and seeing how he deals with it and the interplay with his family, and knowing what's going to be coming in the future, because you see from Future State the storyline of what's coming, and you just can't wait to get there. This is a dope book, man. This is a dope book. I can't say enough about it. Check out I Am Batman. You got something else?
No, that was Nocterra, which I love and am enjoying.
Tell us what's going on with Nocterra. For those of you wondering, scratching your heads, what's the Black reference in Nocterra? Nocterra actually has quite a few Black characters in it. The main character is younger brother, and there's other woman characters in there, with some significant screen time in Nocterra, which is an incredibly well-written and well-illustrated book.
I thought it was only going to be the original 5 or 6 issues, and then they surprised me when they kept the storyline going.
Yeah.
Basically, in the Nocterra universe, the sun has gone out. There was some type of scientific experiment that basically caused the sun to go away. I'm not going to say that the actual sun is no longer there, but the sun's rays do no longer reach planet Earth. And wherever there's darkness, biological creatures, be it, plants, I think some plants are affected, lower form of animals and humans, they get changed into these things known as shades. And they become feral type beasts with no minds of their own. And they just pretty much attack and eat anything. And so, you're always going to find in any type of apocalyptic situation, you're always going to find a group of scrappy humans who survive. And in the Noctera world, this young lady whose name escapes me now, and her brother, her younger brother, have survived, and they pull together with other survivors, and then they traverse different communities that have lights in these trucks. They just have these lit convoys to change goods, to interact with each other, transport people, to do all this type of stuff. So just imagine if you ever watched
Pitch Black.
Well, yeah, that too. But if you watched The Walking Dead, and in the last couple of seasons where you had the hilltop community, then you had this other community. Well, that's what's going on in the Noctera world. You have these different communities that are self-sufficient, but they interact with each other. So they hop these big rigs that have lights on them, et cetera, et cetera. There is one particular creature known as Blacktop Bill, who would be out there. He was a human being who had some stuff done to him where he was just, he wasn't black. Me and Paul are black. This dude was black. Like, he had something done to him to grab some things to his skin. So he was just ebon is what he was. And I guess his skin reflected whatever light there may be. But that aside, they would be running from Blacktop Bill. It's just a very good horror comic. In the current issue, they are trying to go to this place to get some information to find another location so they can undo what has been done to the world. And I've recently, over the past calendar year, over the past 12 months to 18 months, have been collecting a lot of horror comics. Prior to, like I said, this past year, all I would collect would be the whole Cape and Cow type comic books, the superhero set. With this book and a couple of others that I'm collecting, it's more than just superheroes. For example, Bitterroot. Bitterroot has absolutely nothing to do with superheroes. It is a horror comic. Noctera falls into that same vein as a horror comic. Philadelphia is a horror comic.
Nita Hawes.
About vampires. All of this stuff is new stuff for me as a comic book collector and reader. And I just mention it because, folks out there may be like myself who only read or only used to read stuff that involved the Cape and Cow set. Well, nowadays, especially, there is so very much more out there that has people who look like us. I don't know I don't know the ethnicity of the writer, Scott Snyder. I don't know if he is or he's not. But I love the fact how we've got black folks popping up in these books. And, Noctera is one that I collect that I absolutely enjoy. Somebody just said that they love Philadelphia. Paul is the one who got me on to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is phenomenal. I mean, what Rodney Barnes is doing on that book, without spoiling anything, the avenue that he took was just unexpected and kind of brilliant. And it's very engaging. It's very entertaining. Azor's Tiger Comics says Bitterroot too. Absolutely. Scott's a white guy. And, with that name, with all due respects, I kind of thought that, Scott Snyder.
Yeah, but Scott Snyder's white.
Say it again?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Scott Snyder is white.
Yeah, right. But he spins a very good tale. And he and his artistic team did not have to make an interracial family, because I believe both the characters were adopted by their white parents who did not make it through the initial blackout or whatever. But it's just a very good book. We talk about, we always talk about black creatives.
Hold on, let me answer this question real quick to get it out the way. There's a question of who's the super intelligent Black Reed Richards Tony Stark comic character out today.
Blue Marvel,
Blue
but he doesn't make a
Marvel
lot of
and
appearances.
T'Challa, honestly.
Yeah, but T'Challa doesn't really show his brilliance.
He doesn't.
That much.
There's also other science guys like Herbie Brown, the guy who plays the Prowler.
Mhm.
Who
Bill
else?
Foster is dead still.
Bill Foster's still dead because black people in comics. I'm sure there's some more I'm not thinking of off the top of my
He's
head.
the only one I can think of.
Those are the
I
only
can't.
ones that are in current comics I can think of right now.
Right. But
And
we,
of course,
we always
there's Prodigy of the X-Men, but he kind of borrows his part. I don't know if he counts.
we talk about black creatives or whatever, and so I got to talk about my boy Brian Hawkins, who's a member of the group who joined us a couple of weeks ago when we did this. But Brian writes Black Cotton, his independent. He and Patrick Foreman
Among many other books.
He writes Black Cotton with Patrick Foreman on Scout Comics, right? But he is a true creative, and I mention that because he, along with what he does with his work with Patrick, aside from that, he writes other books on his own, and on top of that, he is now the editor of a book that I like, which is called Nottingham. If you are anywhere familiar with the Robin Hood legend and mythos, there's a book called Nottingham. And Brian, with the current iteration, because initially it was like 5 or 6 issues. Now we've started on issue 6 or 7. And Brian has taken over the duties of being the editor for that particular book. And that's the reason why I mention it, because A, Brian is on it, and B, it's a pretty good read, and I like the art on it. It's, again, set over in England during the 1700s or whenever the Robin Hood mythos took place. So that's a pretty good read. But Brian, if you're watching or if he sees this, shout out to him, because he, again, is a true creative.
Louisiana Kid 08 says, I'm really beginning to enjoy reading New Masters. Let me tell you, New Masters, there is a slew of comics out there that are being done by people from Africa that are just fire. New Masters, Land of the Living Gods is another one. There was another series that came out earlier this year called Nobody's Child. There's a new series coming out called Where Starships Die. Well, that's an African character. I don't know if it's an African writer, but there's a lot of writers and artists from Africa getting into comics, and that's not even talking about like the stuff that New Republic Comics is doing, it's been doing for years. The Nigerian brothers that are in the comics, but there's look. I say this all the time. If you have some political reason as to why you won't read this book or another, that's fine. There are plenty of other books that fit whatever political or whatever leanings you have to pique your interest. There's a comic for every type of interest. As Mark said, he was never into horror comics. Now he's reading horror comics. There are comics everywhere in every genre you can imagine, from every type of realm. If you're truly into comics, it's impossible for you to say you don't have anything to read. Facts.
I'm sure
it's just not possible.
I'm not into romance by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm sure that there is, black
Where Starships Go to Die
stuff out there too. So I just, it's not my thing.
So talking about African writers brings up my last book that I wanted to talk about here. It's a shocker because it's controversial, but let's bring it up. The last book I have to talk about is Cap Falcon. Cap Falcon, Captain America: Symbol of Truth. This book is written by the brother Tochi Onyebuchi. Art by R.B. Silver, who does a fantastic job. Tochi Onyebuchi actually also wrote, I believe, Black Panther Legends recently. I think he might have also been the writer. Somebody correct me on this if I'm wrong. I think he was the writer on the first What If Miles Morales became Captain America. I might be wrong on that, but I certainly know there was another African writer who wrote that as well. But, why is this controversial? First of all, Cap Falcon. And we've talked about this at length. There's no good reason that Marvel's first original African-American superhero, who was an original character, not a legacy character, the Falcon, should be anything other than the Falcon. There's no reason Falcon needs to take over the mantle of Captain America. He's his own man. He's his own guy. And even as I see him with the shield and people call him Captain America, I still call him Falcon because that's what he is. He's got his wings. He's Falcon. But that being said, putting that to the side, right, and focusing purely on the story and the things that I personally enjoy. I enjoy a book that's action-packed, that has some depth, does some world building, and has black characters in it, and by the way, has a black writer. This book checks all those boxes easily, and it's just a damn good book. Not to mention, it's got ties to me and Marc's character, Black Panther, in the sense that it's got ties to Wakanda, with a surprise. I wouldn't say it's a cameo, but a surprise appearance in the book, which I'm not going to ruin for you guys if you want to read it. But suffice it to say, this story also has ties to Wakanda.
What If was written by Cody Ziegler.
Cody Ziegler, who's also a brother, and who also wrote that Amazing Spider-Man issue 88 BEY with Captain Marvel. I see Captain Marvel, but the only Captain Marvel I recognize, Monica Rambeau.
Yeah. That What If was pretty good. I like Elseworld or Altworld stories, however you want to call it. I really, really enjoy Elseworld stories. Yeah. This What If Miles Morales was a really good read.
The first one,
because it opens up so much of what could be done with the characters that you're familiar with, but in different ways. I really, really enjoyed that.
It was a black as fuck book. I mean, there was like at least a half a dozen black characters in that book. It was kind of crazy.
It was a very, very good book.
And very
I'm
well
a Captain America fan. I disagree with Paul that, Sam Wilson, yes, is the Falcon, but there have been other individuals who have taken on the mantle of Captain America. We know that Bucky, for a period in time, despite the fact that he became the Winter Soldier, prior to that, he was Nomad or whomever else he was. He also became Captain America, and that's how I viewed him. While Sam is in those colors carrying that shield, to me, he will be Captain America. And I have been a Captain America fan for generations, for a while. I haven't been collecting the title for a minute, but because of what's been happening in this book, I will probably end up picking it up because it has some things that I'm interested in.
Oh, it's a good book. It's a good book, man. Really good book. I don't care what anybody says. Criticize me what you will. I don't collect no black Captain America. Fine. Your loss. If you enjoy comics, if you enjoy cool stories, dope characters, world building, ties to Wakanda, this book has it all. This is a dope book. I challenge you to tell me it's not. Because it is.
I wasn't familiar with this. I saw something about it on Twitter just like yesterday, and I was like, yo, I think I'm gonna go ahead and pick this book up. And I'd forgotten about it that quick until we mentioned it here a little bit ago. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in getting that one. But yeah, those are pretty much, because it's been a couple of weeks. I can't think of anything else that I've picked up recently that folks might find interesting.
Your boy Thor made some waves. For those of you who don't know, Marc is a huge Thor fan. And
Here's
there
Thor's
was one.
hammer right here, hanging around my neck. As a matter of fact.
Okay, that's really TMI, dude. That all right? Don't ever do that again.
It's a fucking necklace. Relax.
All right, that's just not cool. But fine. Your boy made some news this week, or technically last week, for what I'm about to show you, which is a book I'm sure you have. Where is it? Let's bring this on here.
I have no idea what you're about to put up there.
Thor 326.
Yeah.
This is the first appearance of Scarlet Scarab #2, the son of the original Scarlet Scarab, whose name was Abdul Foyori, I believe his name, something along those lines.
Oh, okay, that's what you say. Yeah.
So why is this issue significant? Why did it blow up on eBay this week? Because last week, go ahead.
If you've been watching Moon Knight on Disney Plus, in the last episode, there was Mark Spector's wife, who is a new comic book, who is a new character for live action or whatever, is somewhat based on a character known as the Scarlet Scarab in the comic books. The original Scarlet Scarab appeared in, what was that book?
Invaders 23.
Yeah, Invaders 23. Okay, Invaders was a World War II book involving Captain America, Namor, etc., fighting the Nazis, right? I don't have that. I have everything around it, but I don't have that one. Being a Thor person, I've got Thor going back to Thor 200 straight to when the first volume ended.
This is Invaders 23.
Right.
This is the first appearance of the original Scarlet Scarab. The original Scarlet... This is a dope book. Let me tell you why. The original... First of all, the Scarlet Scarab character has the best one-liners. The original Scarlet Scarab, Egyptian character, archaeologist, who finds the Scarlet Scarab and gains his powers from it. Now, this is taking place during World War II. Captain America is united with the other invaders, consisting of Spitfire, the original Human Torch, who is not part of Fantastic Four. He was an android Human Torch. His sidekick Toro, Namor, and Captain America. Those were the original, and Captain Britain.
They were an Avengers team pre-Avengers.
Not Captain Britain. He was called Union Jack.
Right.
They were the Avengers before the Avengers back in World War II.
And they fought the Nazis. Yeah,
they fought the Nazis. So this Scarlet Scarab, he's like, well, you know what? I fight for Egypt. And Egypt during this time was colonized by the British. And Scarlet Scarab, this Professor Fiore, is like, you know what? I'm tired of the colonizers. He got these great lines. He's like, I'm tired of you colonizers invading my land. So I'm going to unite against your enemy. And when he's talking about the colonizers, he's talking about the British. He goes, I'm going to unite against your enemy, you colonizers. Who are these guys? Nazis? Yeah. You guys are now my friends because you're the enemies of my enemy, so that makes you my friend. So I'm joining with the Nazis because they promised me they're going to help me kick you out of my country. And so Captain America's like, you understand those guys are Nazis, right? He's like, I don't care. They hate the colonizers, and I'm siding with them. So hilarity ensues, fights, etc. As you can see on the cover here, they're fighting. Long story short, Scarlet Scarab is made to understand that the Nazis are bad guys and switches sides and helps Cap and the invaders defeat the Nazis. His son shows up later. There's this issue, and there's also issue 25 is the other issue that he comes in where he switches sides, and you see him. He literally defeats all of the invaders. This guy's mad powerful with the Scarlet Scarab. Not only does he have super strength, invulnerability, the ability to fly, I think he has some energy projection powers as well. He can absorb the powers and energies of whoever he's fighting. So he's fighting Captain America. He's sapping Captain America's strength. He's fighting. You see him grabbing the Human Torch. His flames are going out because he's absorbing all of his strength. So whoever, and Namor's knocked all out. Whoever he's fighting, he takes their power away from them. That's how he beats them. So he literally wiped out the equivalent of the Avengers by himself. Mad powerful character. So those are the two issues, 23 and 25. And then he shows up again in that Thor, what issue number was it, Mark? 326?
Something like that, yeah. Like I literally have not read that book.
This is his son.
I have not read that book since it was released in 1985 or whenever it came out. So I cannot tell you the least bit about this story.
So if you watched Moon Knight,
right.
The character's name is Layla, right? It's Mark Spector's wife. They did not use Mark Spector's original girlfriend, wife, whatever character in the comics is a woman named Marlene. It's a white woman. Nobody cared. So they created this character Layla to be his wife in the series. But early on in the series, you see this other lady refer when she's getting her fake passport done. She's talking to the Egyptian lady. She's like, "Yeah, your father, the Professor Fiore." And I remember watching. I'm like, Professor Fiore. And then it made me realize, I didn't really put two and two together. And then you see them playing with this golden scarab to help find Amit's pit, whatever. Cool, it's a scarab, it's cool. But then when Mark dies, they put this scarab and it's covered with red blood on it. So it turns the gold scarab red because it's got blood on it. And he put it on Mark's head. And that's the red scarab. And she eventually gets the powers and she becomes the new Scarlet Scarab.
But she doesn't get the powers.
Which is a redo of this character. Well, in the sense, the powers, in the sense that she has increased strength.
Right, no. What I was about to say is she doesn't get the powers. For those who don't know, she doesn't get the powers from the scarab.
Right.
She's the avatar of an Egyptian god.
Tauret.
Yeah, Tauret.
Who is the goddess of fertility in women.
Yeah. So there is a new MCU character who who had their appearance in this Thor book and then the Invaders book. So
they basically did a sort of gender swap on this second appearance of the Scarlet Scarab. So the I guess for all intents and purposes, the character you saw in the Moon Knight series is from this issue. Although the general character of Scarlet Scarab started.
How much was it going for?
By the time people realized who she was, I saw this for like $40 on the internet.
Jeez.
At one point. I got this book a month ago for like $4. Now it's selling for like 40. It might even be more than that now.
That's crazy. Obviously I bought it as a Thor guy. I obviously bought it when it originally came out for what?
Yeah, but just a couple weeks ago before that episode aired, this was still a less than $5 book.
What made you get it?
Richard actually told me about it because here's the thing, and I probably shouldn't be telling people this, but I recognized the fact when I saw that the Thor Love and Thunder, is it Love and Thunder's next movie? Yeah.
Blood and Thunder.
Love and Thunder is going to have what?
Blood and Thunder.
No, it's Love and Thunder.
Okay.
Thor Love and Thunder is going to have the gods in it. It's going to have Zeus. Bast is going to be in this movie. I believe Hercules was rumored to be in this movie as well. So this movie is going to have the pantheon of gods for all intents and purposes. Whenever these trailers drop and the characters appear in the MCU, the price of these comics go up. And you know my philosophy, I'm not a spec guy, but I like buying my comics cheap before they go up in price and I get priced out. I hate that. It drives me crazy. So I've already started to try and collect as many of the God books that I can, at least the gods that matter to me. So I collected this book when Richard told me about it. I collected some books with from Seth. Like here's another book. If you're interested in the Egyptian gods, here's another book that you'll want. This is Thor 239. This is the first appearance of the Egyptian Heliopolis, the Egyptian pantheon of gods, is in this issue. Very first instance of it in the Marvel comics was in this issue. Very good issue. And the second issue, they actually have some interaction when gods make war, etc. That's Seth right there. So dope issues to have. But I decided to collect these before they show up in the movies, and I can't get them anymore. Just like you saw with the Scarlet Scarab book.
Then another couple of books that folks might want to get then is Thor Annual number 7, or is it this one? No, probably not 7. Hold on.
Oh, I'll tell you which one.
10. Thor number 10.
It's 10.
Thor
Let me bring
Annual
it up.
number 10.
Yes. This issue right here.
Yeah, that has the Pantheon in it as well.
And specifically, it has the one black African god. Is it Shango?
Something like that, yeah.
I think Shango is in this book. I think he was the first truly West African god depicted in the Marvel Universe is in this book. So that's another one to pick up. But as you can see, because I'm pulling all this from my CLZ. These are books I've already collected because I realized that the gods are coming and I want to just get them all before that happens.
Back in Thor, back in the 80s, because as I said, I've been collecting Thor for 40 years now. But back in the 80s, there was a point when the Celestials were going to be coming to Earth as like the fourth host or whatever. And Odin and the rest of the Sky Fathers got together and were trying to decide how they were going to address them, to deal with them. So another book folks may want to pick up is Thor number 301. And I believe that one has the gods in it as well. If you can pull up that, you may have to just Google it.
Let me see if I don't think I have that one. 301?
Right. Thor 301.
I have 304, the first appearance of Darkoth.
Right. Thor 300 may also have them in it as well, them being these other pantheons.
Let me see if
definitely Thor 301.
And what's the significance of that book?
Well, like I said, it's got the other, I'm pretty sure it's got the other Sky Fathers in it. Like I said, I haven't read this book since it came out in 81, whenever it was, but I know it has the pantheons in it. I'm not saying it's the first appearance of anything, but since we're talking about the gods and they're coming live action and all that other good stuff, then that's probably one that folks may want to deal with.
And I will tell everyone about a really if this interests you, the gods of the Marvel Universe, I'll show you the seminal book to have. This is it right here, 301. Oh, I have to share the screen. Hold on a second.
Just Thor 301, that's it. Yep.
This it?
That's Thor 301. Because he's fighting a Hindu, Thor is fighting a Hindu god right there. And I'm pretty sure that the other Sky Fathers and their pantheons showed up in it as well.
So let me show you the real book to have. And I will tell you from now, this book is hard to find for less than $50 on eBay. And it originally sold for $4.99. So just so you know, it is not easy to find in your LCS. But if you want the ultimate best considered authority on Marvel gods, this is the book you need to have. Thor and Hercules, the Encyclopedia Mythologica. If you're interested in the pantheon of gods in the Marvel Universe, this is literally the encyclopedia of all of them. They've got the Aboriginal gods. Here's the Aha. I don't even know what that is. Here's the Akua. This is like the Polynesian gods. The Japanese gods. This is like the Aztec gods.
So yeah, it's got all of them in there.
All of them in it. Here's your Asgardians. Some honorable mentions, like they'll mention specific characters like Heimdall, Enchantress, Odin. I'm trying to show you the issue Mark just told you about the Thor. Was it 301? You said?
Yeah.
This is that pantheon of gods right there. Here's the character that was on the cover. The Devas. These are the Indian gods.
As you're sitting up here talking about all these gods and stuff like that, and I just happen to be
The Eternals are listed as gods in here.
Right. I'm scrolling through my Thor collection, and Thor had a lot of characters introduced in his book.
Here's a picture all of you have seen. Everyone has seen this picture before on the internet, but this is where it comes from. This is the Heliopolitans. This is the Egyptian pantheon of gods. Recognize this crocodile character? That's the Nemesis. That's Khonshu over here to the left. Here's Ammit. Here's Bastet. Portrayed as a man for some reason, and Bast is really a woman. Usually. But here is the Egyptian pantheon of gods.
In the Egyptian panel of gods or whatever, Thor, being an Asgardian god, he goes up against the Egyptians a lot. There's a point where I want to say Set took over or had Odin as a captive, and I can't remember if the battle was in Thor, Captain America, or Avengers, but it was a pretty good storyline from what I recall about it. But you've got basically two pantheons going up against each other, Thor and his gods going up against the Egyptian gods. If I can figure out what it is, I'll let you know. But I was saying a moment ago how Thor, the book, the title, had a lot of folks introduced on his pages. So there are some that, I'm not saying that these characters will ever make an appearance, but they are first appearances. And there's a character known as Mongoose, who appears to be a black character in Thor number 391. In Thor 395 is a group called
I gotta write all these down, man. Slow down. You got Thor 301, 395.
391 was the first appearance of Mongoose. Thor 395, I believe. Hold on. Yeah, Thor 395 was the first appearance of this group called Earth Force, and they appeared to be, Egyptian based or the like. Yeah, here we go.
Before you finish that thought, let me just point this out so I can get off this page. This is the lion god you see on the screen here, Sekhmet. If you recall, in Captain America Civil War, after T'Challa's father died, and he's sitting outside on a bench, and Black Widow comes to him and she's like, "Are you going to be okay, T'Challa? I'm sorry about the death of your dad." And he's like, "Well, in my religion, death is just a stepping off point in which Bast and Sekhmet come and they guide you to the afterlife, the Jala." And this is Sekhmet. This is the god that he was referring to. This is the lion god. This is the sister of Bast, the lion god. And this god shows up again. Let me show you. This god shows up again in this book. This is something Richard pointed out to me. Tell you, when Rich tells you stuff, you got to pay attention. Do you have this issue? Avengers 112.
Hold on. I don't know if mine goes back that far. Probably
Avengers
not.
Avengers 112 is the introduction of the lion god Sekhmet into the Marvel comics. This has some really dope panels where you have a group of black nationalists call T'Challa out and basically call him a coon. And they follow this guy who's the lion, ends up being the avatar for the Lion God, just like you saw in Moon Knight. He's the avatar of the Lion God, Sekhmet. And he goes after T'Challa because, he's the avatar of Bast, and they want to battle. So this is a dope book to have if you're into collecting the African gods of the Marvel Universe, which is what I'm into right now.
The storyline with the Asgardians going up against the Egyptians, I want to say probably starts in Thor 397. Yeah, Thor 397, 398, and probably 399 is what it looks like. And then I don't know if they will ever make an appearance, but the New Warriors, who
yes, I
one of
know
your
exactly what
favorite
you're about to say.
characters is Night Thrasher, and that they made their first appearance on the pages of Thor
411. Oh, I thought you were going to mention the Sphinx storyline.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, they being the New Warriors, they appeared in Thor 412 in full, maybe as a shadows in 411, but fully in Thor 412. Let's see what else. Yeah, but yeah, as far as the gods are concerned, that's one of the things that I liked about the whole Thor, the Thor comic book, where the pantheons. Because as a kid, I used to read the encyclopedia for fun, and one of the things I really enjoyed was Egyptian and Roman mythology. So I would sit up here and read about Zeus. Then at the end of it, it'd say, see also Hera and Hercules and whomever. So when it comes to mythology, I really, really enjoy that, and that's what really got me into Thor the way that I am.
This is the last of the gods I wanted to share from this book called Thor and Hercules, Encyclopedia Mythologica. Again, if you're interested in the gods of the Marvel Universe, this is the book to have because it's got all of them. This is the Vodou. So for all intents and purposes, these are the West African gods of the Marvel Universe. You've got Anansi, Baluku, god of the sky, Damayado, Wede, Dambala, god of the serpents. Dambala shows up in Brother Voodoo all the time. They talk about the Dambala. Alegua, Eshu, god of crosswords and communication. The gorilla god, Gekre, the god of judgment. Legba, the god of the gateways. Ogun, the god of war. That's a big one. Ocean, Ezili, goddess of love. Another big one. Oya, goddess of wind. Storm, that's where her tribe probably comes from. Sagbata, Baron Semiti, you know that from Brother Voodoo, god of death and disease. And Shango, which is pretty much Thor, the god of thunder and lightning, who's right there dead in the center. That's Shango. He's the one that shows up in that book Mark just told you about, the Thor. Which number was that?
The annual, I think it was annual number
Thor
10.
Annual 10. So that's the first appearance of Shango, who is basically the god of thunder and lightning from this pantheon. So understand, every culture on Earth has its own pantheon of gods. And there's not one pantheon that's bigger than the other. That's what I love about this, is that all the pantheons are considered equal. They're just they all have their own little corners of Earth that they deal with. And they get their power by worship of their followers. The more worshipers you have, the more followers you have, the more powerful the god becomes.
Gods are leeches, or energy leeches. But that's one of the issues that I had as a longtime Thor fan. That's one of the issues that I had with the Thor movies, is because they race swapped a lot of individuals. And I understand why they did it, because they wanted inclusion. I get it. I understand.
It's lazy.
But as a fan of the original content, I, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, took offense at the fact that they made Idris Elba Heimdall. Heimdall is a big old hairy white dude, because the Asgardians are a Nordic pantheon. They were worshipped by the Danes and the Northmen. as they call them, who we call as Vikings, you know? So the fact that they want to sit up here and throw Asian folks or black folks in there just didn't make sense to me. I understand it, I get it, but as a fan of the source material, I did not agree with that decision, even though I understand it. But I was confused a second ago because the new Thor movie is called Love and Thunder. But back in the 80s, there was a Thor storyline known as Blood and Thunder. And basically, this is a storyline where Thor lost his mind. He had what they call is Warrior's Madness. And he basically had to be subdued by his father because he was literally going out of his mind. And in this storyline, this is the first time I want to say that Odin went up against Thanos. And Odin unleashed on Thanos. And even though he drove him to his knees, Thanos still survived. Paul said a second ago that, you know, all the pantheons are viewed as equal, and that may very well be true. But in the comic books, it seems like Odin is the Sky Father who is respected and revered the most of all the Sky Fathers. And I'm talking about even Zeus. You know, he's first among equals, is what it seems like. So.
Yeah. So a couple other things here. Well, there's some comments here I want to go over. Azor says Spider-Man Fairy Tales #2 was the first appearance of Anansi the Spider God. That is a very dope issue. I'm not certain that's the very first appearance of Anansi the Spider God. I'll do some research on it because I used to think the same thing. I know what issue you're talking about. I have it here. Let me bring that up. That's Spider-Man Fairy Tales #2, which is a really dope issue. I believe it's written by C.B. Cebulski, who is now the editor-in-chief at Marvel. Here it is. I'm a big fan of the Anansi God. This is it here. Spider-Man Fairy Tales #2. This is the god Anansi, Spider God, the trickster, the god of knowledge.
What year did that come out?
What year? This came out August 2007.
Because
and it was written by C.B. Cebulski, as I said before, is now the editor-in-chief at Marvel.
In the Spider-Man storyline, I think it was called The Other.
Yes.
I think he may have made an appearance there, and I'm not going
right. That's why I said I don't think this is the first appearance of Anansi. I think it was actually in that Spider-Man story, The Other. That's where the first appearance of Anansi actually occurred.
Right, and I've got that.
I know that I have it here. It would take me a minute before I could find the issue for you, Azores. But it's actually Spider-Man The Other is where the first appearance of Anansi occurred.
And I'm gonna tell you, that was about a 12-issue story that was pretty good. Let me see if I can pull it up easily. The Other.
Wasn't she in Moon Knight? I don't know what this person was talking about in reference to who was in
probably Moon Knight. the Red Scarab or something.
Oh. And then next we have, wasn't she on the panel of gods?
The hippo lady. And probably
Towerette
and the alligator chick.
Derek says some good info being shared here. Thanks. You're quite welcome, man. Speaking of Thor, that Miles What If cover. Oh yes. Let's bring that up. The next What If Miles Morales? I think it's issue 4.
You know what? I saw that and I didn't pick it up. I need to get it. Yeah.
I'll pull it. It hasn't come out yet.
No?
Number 4?
Well, no. I mean, there was another What If, I think, that had Miles on it, but I did not get it.
That was the Hulk one. The Hulk one.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah. This is I have the one that he's talking about. Hold on, give me a sec. This is the issue he's talking about. I love this cover. Say what you will about, look, I was one of the first critics of this whole series. I think it's a little lazy to do sort of a what if a black person was these white legacy characters. That's in essence what this is. Unfortunately, damn Marvel picked Cody Ziegler to write the first one, and it was freaking fire. It was actually a really good story. So I end up starting to buy the series, much to my, better judgment, against my better judgment, because of the political nature of this. There's just so many other characters they could have done this, something similar like. Anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent. The fact remains, this is a dope cover. It's just, I'm just talking artistically. It's a dope cover. I'm from Brooklyn. I love seeing him on the Brooklyn Bridge. With the graffiti on there is the Rainbow Bridge. He's got his Jordans on. My boy flexing. I mean, that's just a dope cover. There's some variants to that same issue too.
I'm trying to find out.
This is the other variant. I guess this is the design variant. He's got graffiti on Mjolnir. And there's one other variant. Can't really see this one though. Yeah, this one's kind of hard to see.
Okay, here we go.
There we go. What if Miles Morales became Thor?
All right, so we were talking about Anansi a second ago, and I'm not saying that Anansi made their first appearance in this storyline, but we were talking about Spider-Man the Other, which was a Spider-Man cross-issue storyline, and it came out around.
I think Derek's taunting you right now.
Okay.
He says, I saw something this week about how there were black Vikings.
Yep, live and learn. It was roughly around 2005, 2006, and it was in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 1 through 4, Marvel Knight Spider-Man 19 through 22, and The Amazing Spider-Man 525 through 528.
Azor says, okay, is it Amazing Spider-Man 48? Because they renumbered the books, so now I gotta look at my collection.
At this time, no, it wasn't renumbered back then. No. Well, I don't believe so.
I know I have the issue. I think I have the issue, I should say.
Right, and like I said, it was in a whole bunch of different books. Well, 3 different books: Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Marvel Knight Spider-Man, and The Amazing
Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I think that rings a bell. I want to say it might have been in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Let me look at that. I'm sorry. I'm going to obsess about this until I can find the answer. I apologize, everybody.
Yeah, and it came out December from 2005 to 2006. And it was a pretty good storyline. I just don't remember since we were talking about Anansi, I just don't remember if that character made an appearance. But as a story, that was a pretty good story.
I want to say it was in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 1. I believe that's where it was. I believe that was the very first appearance of Anansi. That was in October of 2005. The Spider-Man Fairy Tales issue we talked about before, that was 2007. So this is from 2005. Let me pull up the issue. This is it. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 1. I think this is where Spider-Man's trying to investigate the origins of the totem for his power, because at this time we have this character named Morlun, who is a totem eater. He basically is a vampiric type of character who seeks out powered individuals whose power bases are based on animals. And so he'll go after Ant-Man or Spider-Man or Black Panther, whatever. What if your power is based on some type of animal, and that's where you get your power from, like an animal god, he's going after you. And so Spider-Man's investigating the origins of his power, and he traces it back to Anansi, and I think it's in this issue, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 1. And what's interesting also is the following issue which is Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man #2, he actually goes to Wakanda, and in Wakanda, he visits T'Challa for an unrelated reason. And T'Challa, when he's showing him around Wakanda, takes him to the temple, the Anansi worshippers' temple in Wakanda. Because we always forget that Wakanda is made up of more than just the religion, the Bast, the religion of the cult of Bast. It's made up of other religions as well. One of those sects are worshippers of Anansi, the spider god. So they were looking at Spider-Man like, oh my God, this is the avatar of our god. You know, they're kind of like, you know, worshiping the dude. So those are two dope issues to have in your collection. And these are not expensive issues.
Philadelphia. Anansi makes an appearance in Philadelphia as well.
Oh man, that's a whole nother level. That's a whole nother level.
So huge appearance. I just don't remember what the first book was. But it's pretty good, you know. Rodney's doing his thing over there.
Lion God. I'm sorry, I missed a bunch of comments. I apologize. I'm gonna go through them now. People, I know you've been commenting feverishly, and I've been doing two different things at once. Someone talks about the Lion God. Sekhmet was on the panel of gods in Moon Knight. Yes, correct. I agree. Derek says the other was a crossover event in 2005, 2006.
Yep.
Comic Book Crackheads is at Azor's Tiger Comics. Azor says, loving this. Y'all are helping add to my hunting list. Appreciate you. Hey, love is love, bro. Whatever we can do to help. We're a community. Looks like Amazing Spider-Man 48 had him in 2003. Amazing. Now you got to look it up, man. You got it?
I'm sure I do, because I used to collect. Well, I collect.
I like how Rodney Barnes portrayed Anansi within Philadelphia. Man,
yes.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started. I actually told Rodney Barnes that he needs to give Anansi his own spin-off series. Like, facts. Like, he needs his own spin-off series. That would just be a dope series in and of itself.
Okay, Amazing Spider-Man number 48 in volume 2 of Amazing Spider-Man, which would also be numbered as 489.
Let me pull that up then. I should have that, I think. My Spider-Man collection is absurd.
It says, here there is a ruin sacred to Anansi, the first totemic Spider-Man. Here he believes that Peter will be most purely the spider and perhaps can defeat Shock.
What was the other numbering for it?
489.
489.
Amazing Spider-Man 489. So yes, to answer that question, I do have that. Yes.
All right, yeah, here it is. Let's take a look on the inside of the book too, if I get a chance to do that. That's the issue. So this is the first issue of Anansi.
This was in 2003.
All right, so let me pull that up, because that means that Friendly Neighborhood #1 is not the issue. It's the second issue that has the Anansi temple in Wakanda. Well, let me pull up. Amazing Spider. There are just a crap ton of volumes of Spider-Man.
Yes,
and you said it was 48, right?
Yeah, volume 2, number 48.
Okay. Let's take a look at that panel. Here it is. There he is.
Yep. And according to Key Collector, Amazing Spider-Man 48, first appearance of Kwaku Anansi, referred to as the first Spider-Man.
His name was Kwaku Anansi, and centuries ago he lived in the West African country now called Ghana. They said he sometimes looked like a wise old man. And there he is swinging through the trees. Other times looking more like a spider, traveled across Africa on strong web strings.
Yep.
So this is the very first appearance, and this artwork is John Romita Jr. If I'm not mistaken. That's pretty.
Yeah, that looks way like his.
Yeah, that's JRJ. All right, so that's John Romita Jr. Artwork. This is the very first appearance of Anansi in Marvel Comics, 2003.
And according to the collector, Key Collector, it's not that expensive either.
It's not. It's
like $4 or less.
I mean, I like you. I got this when it originally came out because I was collecting Spider-Man at the time.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Well, look, we've been on here for 2.5. I'm getting tired. Yes, he's in Anita House as well. Yes, because all that's connected. And that's it. But anyway, next week I should still be good for next week. Today is the 13th. Yeah, I should be good for next week. So.
All right.
All right. Well, guys, girls, anything in between, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. And enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Look, if you like the show that we did, do us a big favor. Hit the like button. Subscribe to our channels on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe channel. Hit the subscribe button so you know when we're going to be on. And certainly hit the like button. It's what allows us to keep doing what we're doing. It's a very minor way to say thank you and help us keep doing what we're doing if you like the content. Really appreciate y'all. We'll see you next time. Peace.